What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Unique Mazik. I am the hardest working man in sports and gaming, and this is Heavy Presents. I'm just saying with Brian Mazik, and we are again joined by my three panelists. My man, what's going on, Paul Boy Green Esden Jr.? How are you doing today, sir?
Hope you guys dig the new studio. Got a brand new setup here, and some nice decor. And thank you so much for having me.
It still looks like gangrene just happened, so it's okay. Okay. Lorenzo Reyna, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. It's playoff time, guys. It's definitely playoff time.
Yeah, it's playoff time for everybody but
Oh, my
one
bad.
of us. But it's
I'm sorry.
Not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that to Paul.
Kind of messed up.
Ryan Sanudo, how are you doing? Heavy on Cardinals writer, sir. How are you feeling?
Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I mean, I can't
Oh,
wait for this, man. I can't wait, bro. Like, this is going to be crazy. The Cardinals are in their very first playoffs since 2015, and they're going to be on Monday night. I think it's the inaugural Monday night.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
it's going
that's
to be
right.
crazy. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
That's a nice spot for the Cardinals, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Everybody in the world watching it. Just period, right?
Yep.
But let's jump directly into we got 7 things we're going to talk about today, everyone. So we're going to jump right in, and we're going to go into 49ers country from the beginning. And I'm going to point this question directly at our heavy on 49ers beat writer, Lorenzo Reyna. Sir,
Yes.
who the 49ers fans owe the most thanks to for their playoff berth? Because things didn't always look as if they'd be playing in that second season. So if you had to pick somebody and say it's this guy, who would you go with?
For the season or for yesterday?
For the playoff berth, period, overall.
Oh, for the playoff berth? All right, this is going to be a surprise pick. I'm going to go with Sean McVay. He is the guy that 49er fans are probably going to send a thank you card to. And here's the reason why. He went straight lunatic on the last touchdown before halftime. Like, just runs out and he's trying to celebrate with Tyler Higbee and all his guys. Guess what happened after that? The 49ers outscored the Rams 27-7 and time again. Kyle Shanahan, for all the flack that he gets, he finds a way to outcoach and outsmart Sean McVay. The one time that Sean McVay has a W over Kyle Shanahan, it came all the way in Cabo, San Lucas, when he pilfered Matthew Stafford. But, in the second half, it's like the Rams were trying to be so reliant on the running game. I felt like they only threw the football to Cooper Kupp like 3 times. And, I mean, the 49ers already predicted what they were going to do. And then Kyle Shanahan started getting into his bag in the second half. So I feel like that it's Sean McVay that really jinxed it for the Rams. But I feel like the 49ers faithful, they're going to be sending him some Hallmark cards.
Wow. Sean McVay is the one that deserves the most, I guess the most credit because he
saved the 49ers season. That's how I look at it. He saved the 49ers season.
That is a unique take, sir. What about you, Ryan? What would you say?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a different Ram. I'm going to go with Raheem Morris, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. So I'm going to go with other for this question. Look, like he got bamboozled by Kyle Shanahan the second half. I mean, you brought up Sean McVay. I agree. He looked very conservative in the second half, but Raheem Morris had no answer with Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Jalen Ramsey has a stellar front four. They looked invisible against the Rams offensive line. And I got to say, man, not Rams, 49ers offensive line. I mean, Raheem Morris, I think, deserves a lot of blame. I mean, for a first-year defensive coordinator, coming from the Atlanta Falcons last year, I mean, I'm looking at Twitter and I'm looking at a lot of fans, putting out their displeasure over Raheem Morris, wanting him fired. I mean, you saw Black Monday today, the amount of guys that got fired. But, I mean, the 49ers, I got to give credit to Jimmy G. I usually am a hater when it comes to Jimmy G. And I still think he's painfully average. And let's not forget, he got 3 turnovers compared to 1 touchdown on Sunday. But I got to say, he put on his big boy pants and he delivered in the fourth quarter. I mean, this cannot happen if you're Raheem Morris, a guy that has a fractured finger, and he pretty much got schooled by Jimmy G and Shanahan. So I got to say, Raheem Morris, you got to step it up on Monday against Arizona with a team that does not have Hopkins as well.
That's interesting. He didn't actually have 3 turnovers. He had 2 turnovers. The fumble he had was not a fumble lost. So he only had the 2 turnovers. So it's,
but he lost the ball 3 times. I think that's what he meant.
No, he didn't. He didn't say that. He said he had 3 turnovers.
I meant it. I meant it. He got lucky, Jimmy G, with that, but I'll give him that.
That's what he said. We just want to be straight with what we're saying here.
I'm just saying.
What do you say about these Niners?
I'll say this. I'm going to give the old tip of the cap to Brandon Ayuk. From the doghouse to the crib. This guy couldn't get on the field. So talented. High expectations heading into this year. Led the 49ers in receiving in this game. And in particular, all season long, you had Deebo Samuel, the versatile weapon of mass destruction. But in particular, it was Brandon Ayuk, who, again, at the beginning of the year, he couldn't find his way on the field. What did he do wrong? Whose cereal did he piss in? We still don't know. But the fact of the matter is this, is that Brandon Ayuk is the straw that stirs the drink for this team, and he's a guy that got it done. So why don't we give a tip of the cap to Mr. Ayuk?
I hear that. I hear that he did have a solid game. I think you might also be overlooking Jawan Jennings, who actually had 2 touchdowns in the game and just as many receptions as Ayuk. Also had, the second longest reception of the game behind Deebo Samuel's 43-yard completion. But I'm going with none of those people. And then you want to talk about going outside of the box. It's really not outside of the box. It's actually right in the box. I'm going to go with previously much maligned and controversial offensive line coach Chris Forster. Now, Chris Forster was a really hot name at one point, but he got into some sort of a scandal where he was supposedly seen on video snorting a white substance into his nose. So it really, really dimmed and slowed down what would have been probably a rise up into a head coaching position.
Good Lord.
But all of that aside, his ability to commandeer a running game in just about every situation, I think has been great for his overall career. It just shows him as how brilliant of a football mind the guy actually has. And if you look at I'd say the most consistent aspect of the 49ers offensive attack and what has helped to take some pressure off of Garoppolo, as well as a rookie quarterback in Trey Lance, who started some key games for them this year, is their ability to run the football. And I think if you look at what the 49ers have done across that offensive line, it doesn't get enough credit what they've done. If you just look at them, period, they have been a very steady team on the ground. 2,166 yards on the ground this year, which is good for 7th in the NFL. That is the biggest reason. And getting all of this out of Elijah Mitchell, it all starts up front. It all starts obviously with the players, but the leadership that they've gotten from Chris Forster, to me, I think he's the guy, the unsung hero, the under the radar guy, and he's the one that I'm giving the most credit for them.
And keep in mind too, they went without Trent Williams as well. So there's that follow up as well.
Yes. So I that he's my guy for that. So let's move on. We're gonna talk about the Jets. Jets, Jets. Ideal off-season trade targets for the Jets, because obviously you got a team that's picking in the top 4 again this year. Seems like they just kind of live there. They're like the NFL's Cleveland Cavaliers. It's like running them back, right? So there's some obvious moves that need to be had. Looking for trade targets. Mr. Esden, what do you say?
The Jets and Joe Douglas at today's press conference said that he will be aggressive in using the assets that are in front of him. They have 4 picks in the top 38 on top of $60 million in cap space. That is 4th best in the NFL. And they will be aggressive in pursuing potential guys that are hanging out there to acquire. And one that certainly jumps to my mind, and I got to go immediately to this, is Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, Denver Broncos. There's a couple of reasons why I think he could be had. First off, they just paid Cortland Sutton. They just paid Tim Patrick. You got enough money in the coffers for a 3rd wide receiver? Perhaps. They also are having a changing of the guard. Vic Fangio was let go. So there's kind of some upheaval going on in Denver with the regime change, with all the money throwing around a wide receiver. The next guy coming in may say, we can't then now pay Jerry Jeudy And also, he's had some struggles, obviously, in his career. But don't worry, the Jets are all about bringing in injured and wounded birds into our building and nursing them back to health. And that's exactly what the Jets can do with a player like Jerry Jeudy. Put him with Elijah Moore. Put him with Corey Davis. Yes, sir. Order your Jerry Jeudy jersey, Jets fans.
Wow.
Okay.
I hear you. Ryan, what do you say about the Jets?
Yeah, I like that one by Paul. I'm going to go the same route with the position wide receiver. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper of the Dallas Cowboys. Look, I got to say, Amari Cooper, a couple weeks ago, he complained about lack of targets. I think Mike McCarthy even responded. And, they gave him some targets, against the Eagles in the last game. But, man, if that continues, let's say they lose in the playoffs very early and Amari Cooper is pissed, and you go into the offseason and you have Michael Gallup as, a potential free agent, and you want to keep him, maybe for 1 year because of the torn ACL, and you have Cedric Wilson, CeeDee Lamb is going to be your number one. Amari Cooper may be available. I mean, you never know. Of course, if you want to say it's unrealistic, I totally agree. But at the same time, if you're the Jets and you know that Cooper is potentially available, you just go right ahead and try to grab him because you need an X receiver on this team. You have Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, like Paul said, and the contract, he did sign a 5-year deal a couple years ago, but he's still only 27 years old. He's going to be turning 28 this year. Not that old. And I think people with Brandon Cooks, I remember I was like, oh, Brandon Cooks is washed up. He's getting closer to 30. You looked how he played against with the Texans. I mean, he was very good this year. So I don't care about age. You want age when it comes to this team, actually. You need someone that's a veteran. And I think Amari Cooper could be that guy.
Two very interesting options there for the trade on the trade market for the Jets. What about you, Lorenzo?
I definitely like the wide receiver ideas, but I'm going to go defense here. And I know, like, when it comes to the Jets topics, I always gravitate more towards the defensive side. I'm going to go with a linebacker. His name, it's floated around in trade circles, especially before the deadline. Unfortunately, nothing fell through. His name was also linked to the Los Angeles Rams before they made their move to get Von Miller, but I'm going to go with Myles Jack as a potential possibility for the New York Jets linebacking core. He's still a relatively young guy. I believe he's right now 26, will be 27 this upcoming next football season. To me, like, in looking at Robert Saleh's defense, he likes those like athletic but also tall, rangy guys, a la like a Fred Warner. So I'm thinking, and because of the friction that's gone on in Jacksonville, I feel like that Myles Jack definitely is at a point where he wants out. I mean, I honestly think New York would be an intriguing possibility because you have a defensive mind already as the head coach. So I'm thinking maybe he can add to that athleticism there.
Hey, by the way, Lorenzo, real quick, what do you think it would take to acquire a guy like Myles Jack?
Obviously, like, I think with his value, I could probably see like maybe the Jets giving up a third, maybe fourth rounder, maybe to acquire him, maybe a future pick. I just think with the value and just overall production, I think maybe that could be a potential deal that could fall into place.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that he would even command that kind of I'm thinking maybe fourth or fifth round, definitely not third. You got to remember, as good as people consider Myles Jack, he's never been to a Pro Bowl, anything like that. He's never really, the last time he was a part of I would say an above average defense, Jalen Ramsey was still a member of the Jags, and I was probably, maybe Myles Jack, like, I don't know, second or third or fourth year in the league. So I don't know if he would warrant that at this point. I do consider him a solid player, but it'll be interesting. For me, I'm going to go back to the wide receivers. And Ryan actually mentioned the guy who I have in mind. It's Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is coming into the last year of his deal. And it is a bit of a poison pill kind of a deal because it is a $16.2 million cap hit, and he's got a base salary of $12.5 million. But if we talk about all of the receivers that were mentioned, Brandon Cooks had the most productive year. He's 28 years old, but he played in all 16 games. He's actually only missed 3 games in the last, back since 2015. He's only missed 3 games. Actually, he missed 1 game this year, so I forget that there's 17 games this year. So he missed 4 games since 2015. He had 90 receptions this year, which is a career high, 1,037 yards, which is the sixth time he's going over 1,000 yards in his career. And he had 6 touchdown catches. Clearly, he's still a productive player. The fact that he only has 1 year remaining on his deal, to me, would make him even more attractive to the Jets, because you mentioned it before. Many of you, a few of you guys have already mentioned this. Having a veteran receiver in with that younger mix is something that could really help. It could actually also be instrumental in the development of Zach Wilson, which is something that not enough of us have probably made reference to, because at the end of the day, what happens with Zach Wilson is really the barometer for how successful the Jets are at this point. So you need to surround him with as many weapons and protection as possible, and bringing in a veteran, a productive guy like Brandon Cooks, I think is the right thing to do. And I think he could be had for some, I think you might be looking at a 3rd round pick for Brandon Cooks, because he is a 1,000-yard receiver, a productive guy. He is, he hasn't been to a Pro Bowl either, but he has some of those magic kinds of numbers for a wide receiver, which is 1,000-yard seasons and over 80 catches. So I think a 3rd round pick could definitely pry Brandon Cooks away from a team who needs to stockpile draft assets anyway. So that's my trade for the Jets. Let's jump on to the next, and we're going to stay in the AFC East. And we're going to talk about the Dolphins, who made a shocking decision to fire Brian Flores on Black Monday. I was shocked, taken aback by that particular thing. The guy won 8 of his last 9 games. There was some whispers that maybe he might be sneaking into the Coach of the Year race because of the way the Dolphins finished. They swept the Patriots this year, ending the Patriots any hopes that they had of winning the division in the last game of the season. Yet it still was not enough to convince Dolphins ownership and management to keep him. So now the Dolphins are among the teams looking for another head coach. And we were just talking about the Texans. And for me, and I'm going to say this, just because I mentioned this guy doesn't mean that I think that he's the most fantastic coach or anything like that. But when I look at what this Dolphins team probably needs right now, all things considered, I'm looking at former Patriots assistant, former Houston Texans head coach, and current Alabama Crimson Tide offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien. Wow. And I'm wondering if this is the opportunity, the time that he needs to get another shot. You got to remember how successful he was at one point with the Texans before things went off the rails. He kind of lost his locker room by being a bit too much of a control freak. And I think a lot of times guys have to learn their lesson. They have to get humbled a bit, and they come back. Now, he's not going to change who he is entirely, but some tweaks and stuff here and there. And now you maybe can do things. There's no question how well he works with younger quarterbacks and quarterbacks, period. That's part of what he does. Tua Tagovailoa very, very much needs a quarterback whisperer at this point. And they also need to establish the type of running game that they use against the Patriots in Week 18 to really, truly be effective. I think Bill O'Brien has the coaching chops to do that. And I think it would behoove Miami to give another look at a guy who could truly be a special head coach in the league, because he has had some success. I know there may be some trepidation with hiring another former Belichick guy after you just fired Brian Flores, but I still think this is the right kind of move that they need to go for. They definitely need to switch the focus to an offensive-minded guy, and I like Bill O'Brien. What say you, Paul?
So what's the question?
the question is the best possible coaching candidate for the Dolphins.
Brian Flores. Yeah. Brian Flores is the best candidate, quite frankly. Answer that question. No, hey, whoa now. Just, that's why I want to make sure I heard the question right, to make sure it was Flores. But anyway, I'll answer the question. I feel like Mr. Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, I think he has a zest for splash, pun intended, of course. And I feel like he's going to want to get on the scuba gear, and he wants to dive into the deep end of the pool. And that includes a splashy, sexy Deshaun Watson trade. And I think that also is some sizzle with Mr. Jim Harbaugh. I think he is ready to come back to the NFL. There's a track record of success with what he did with the San Francisco 49ers. And quite frankly, I think he's looking at the mirror this morning going, this is about as good as it's going to get here at Michigan. I got him to the college football playoff. I won Coach of the Year. I'm as high as I'm going to go. It's all downhill from here, so I better hit the eject button before it's too late, while my stock is as high as it can be, and people still remember what I did in San Francisco. So for me, I think it's Harbaugh. I think Ross wants to be splashy. He's going to go Harbaugh. He's going to go Watson, grab all the headlines for the Miami Herald, and they're going to go try to win some Super Bowls.
Okay.
I don't hate that concept. I don't hate it at all. Ryan Sanudo, what do you say?
Yeah, I'm going to go with actually a guy that's already linked to the Chicago Bears. I think Adam Schefter just put it out 2 minutes ago. Brian Daboll, offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. I mean, yes, I think he was offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins in 2011. So some people could say, oh, he doesn't want to go back. They fired him, blah, blah, blah. It's 10 years. It's over 10 years ago. I don't know if Daboll is really, holding a grudge over Miami over that. I feel like a lot of teams do that where they fire coaches after 1 year. They want to bring in a new staff. So I say Daboll as an option because he was actually offensive coordinator for Tua in Alabama. So if they want to bring back Tua, Daboll can maybe rejuvenize Tua's, play. And if, let's say, Tua doesn't return and they get a splashy guy in Deshaun Watson, then Daboll is still an offensive guy. And I got to say, Daboll's had his ups and downs, I would say, in the first half of the season. But in the second half, I've noticed Josh Allen playing a lot better, ball security. So I got to say Brian Daboll. I mean, I think the Dolphins getting rid of a defensive-minded head coach in Brian Flores, getting an offensive guy, you know what the Dolphins are about. They're all about, defense. I think now they should start realizing, you know what, we need offense. You look at the division with the Bills, and you pry Daboll away from Buffalo. I think that's what you want to do, and see what happens. So I think Miami should definitely be interested in Daboll's services.
That is interesting. I don't hate that, but I do hesitate to imagine that being the job that he takes.
Yeah, I mean,
because he'll be I think he'll be a very much sought after guy. As you just mentioned, Adam Schefter did just report that the Bears requested permission to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I just
it's there's really no perfect option. I mean, that's what you see every year. I mean, when it comes to head coaches, it's not like, oh, there's your golden retriever. It's you don't really see a really good head coach out there. You see average at best or retreads, and like you mentioned, Bill O'Brien. But I mean, there's really not someone that's perfect out there. I mean, once you fire Brian Flores, anything can happen. So I don't really know what the best option is really out there.
Yeah, I actually didn't mean it from their standpoint. I meant it more from Daboll's standpoint.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the job he'll want to take. I think he'll have his pick. And going back to Miami, I just don't know. I don't know if he'll want that, but it'll be interesting. I actually think Daboll's not my number one pick for the Bears, but if I'm Daboll and I have to pick between the Dolphins and the Bears, I'm not sure. I don't
know if the Bears are really as good as you're saying. I mean, I think
it's not.
Honestly, my choice for the Bears.
For me, it's not that as much as it is just the overall situation that you're going into in Miami.
You don't have a first round pick if you're in Chicago this year.
That's true.
So
that is true. But you got fired from Miami.
No, but that was 10 years ago. So I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And it's the same division that you've been coaching.
No, I get it.
For. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Lorenzo, what do you say?
Yeah. I'm going to stay with the theme of offense. And you guys mentioned quarterback whisperer. Why not a former quarterback whose name is literally either number one, number two as the potential assistant who goes and becomes a head coach? I'm talking about Kellen Moore. I'm thinking Kellen Moore, this could actually be an ideal situation for Moore because, you can help out Tua Tagovailoa, especially given that You're a former quarterback. You've done wonders with Dak Prescott, who also dominated in the SEC. Tua has an SEC background. You have Jalen Waddle, another SEC star who's thriving with the Dolphins despite their offensive inconsistencies. You're already working with an Alabama guy in Amari Cooper. But again, it's like Kellen Moore's name. The more that I see Kellen Moore, the more I feel like he's going to be a head coach. I feel like this potentially could be a splashy hire for the Dolphins. And for Moore, it could be a good first startup job as well.
By the way, both of them are also left-handed. So, fun fact.
Yeah,
that too.
Yeah, another thing too about
that
being a
is a
lefty.
very interesting one there, because that is a certain type of nuance to playing the position that not everybody will be able to speak to. So I like that. I don't think any of those things are like horrible suggestions. I think all of them are feasible. Let's jump on to the Cardinals. So the Cardinals have not finished the season strong. That is an understatement. But they are still in the postseason, which is better than the majority of the league can say. But there's no question they did not want to finish the year one on a loss and just not playing very well in the last 5 to 6 games. But yet, like I said, 11-6 gets them in. But who is to blame the most for their second half struggles? And I'm going to come right to you, Ryan Sanudo, our heavy on cards writer. Who do you blame the most for their second half struggles?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Coach Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, it's tough. It's right.
That's the coach of the year.
That's coach of the year right there. I mean, I got to give him a lot of credit for the first half, but the question is second half. And Cliff Kingsbury, I've noticed a lot of inconsistencies on offense. I get it. You don't have DeAndre Hopkins, but time management, personnel, using your guys in the right times. There are certain times where it's at the end of the game, you're losing, and you need plays where you can get out of bounds. And I'm noticing a lot of lackadaisical, types of plays, a lot of predictable plays in the middle of the field. I think if anyone was watching that Colts game, everything was down in the middle of the field and the clock was ticking, tick-tock, tick-tock. And you're like, why aren't they trying to get out of bounds? And that just never could happen. And I noticed that against the Seahawks as well. I mean, Kingsbury, like I said, I'm giving him a lot of credit for the first half, going through the, leaps and bounds with Colt McCoy when Murray was out. But I think with Kingsbury, there's certain things where, man, you're seeing like rookie mistakes when it comes to this team. And I know with the injuries, but you can see that with a lot of teams, in the league. So I think Kingsbury has a lot to blame, but I'm not going to just sit here and say Kingsbury, it's 100% on him. I also think the offensive line has so many issues with health, with penalties, and, lots of mistakes when it comes to, botched snaps with when Rodney Hudson was not playing. So I'm not going to just put it all on Kingsbury, but the offensive line, again, I think they gave up 5 sacks to Seattle, and Murray was basically, he kept, when he was going into the pocket, his offensive linemen were right there, and the rest, he got sacked 5 times. And usually that's what you were seeing with Murray in his rookie year. So I got to say Kingsbury and the offensive line for the majority of the team's issues right now.
How about you, Lorenzo?
I'm definitely going to piggyback off of Ryan. I think Cliff Kingsbury, he deserves the blame. I mean, you hear the old saying, it starts at the top. It starts with the head coach. It starts with him. I look at it also as this. So, I mean, Ryan mentioned like that Colts game. Well, I also should mention that in December, there was that huge time mismanagement that the Cardinals had toward the end of that Monday Night Football game. And that happened in December when you're making a push for the division title. And then, as you saw on Sunday, a Seattle Seahawks team with absolutely nothing to play for at this point, Pete Carroll still found a way to educate Cliff Kingsbury on how to finish out the season, regardless of what your record looks like. So I feel like that in Kingsbury's end, he just got schooled by names like Sean McVay, by Pete Carroll. He got schooled by Frank Reich as well, all during a very crucial time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing. We got 2 against Cliff Kingsbury. Will you make it 3, Paul?
Absolutely not. You guys, all these scapegoats here and there. Let's call the BS what the BS is. It's Kyler Murray. Because here's the thing.
Whoa,
okay?
whoa. There's three guys. That's not one of them. I mean,
I'm giving you a different one. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. It's Kyler Murray. Because
All
over the last 5 weeks, he has only had 2 touchdown passes or more once. That was against the Cowboys. Okay, great. A blind squirrel finds a nut. Here's the thing. Kyler Murray was supposed to be this incredible beast. Oh, no, watch out. He's a franchise quarterback and all this. Underwhelming, because that's what he is, okay? He's been underwhelming. He hasn't put his team on his back. And maybe he's just too short and fragile and small to be able to carry the weight of a team. But quite frankly, he hasn't been able to put it on the table. That's it. Okay, let's just call it how it is. Kyler Murray hasn't been good enough. And we'll see if he can put on his big boy pants, or is he going to be, once again, just a babysat on Monday Night Football as they lose and go one and done. I lean towards the latter.
Wow, I think that's pretty harsh. I don't think Kyler has had a fantastic year, but I do think there's some other things at play there. But I have a different take on this whole question. So it's basically who deserves the blame the most for the Cardinals' second half struggles. And my answer to the question is no one.
Oh, wow.
And here's why.
Philosophical.
Here's why nobody's to blame. What can easily happen is we can forget what this team was really supposed to be before the season even started. Most people, most prognosticators had the Cardinals finishing 4th, no higher than 3rd in the division. Nobody had them leading the NFC most of the year, leading the NFC West most of the year, and then getting into the playoffs still with a double-digit win season. But what ended up happening is they get off to this fast start, and now expectations start to raise. But the personnel is still the personnel. And no matter what happens on Monday Night Football in the playoffs, no matter what happened the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season, the Cardinals still massively overachieved for what was expected of them. And because of that, I don't even look at the end of the season as a struggle, more or less, or was it more of them playing closer to what we all expected them to be to begin with? So I definitely think there's some things to grow on, and some seeds have been planted in what they've done this season, getting into the postseason. But I won't go as far to say there's someone to blame. The league starts to make adjustments on teams. Injuries start to set in. All those things happen. I think all of that happened to the Cardinals this year, but I won't call it a room for blame. I call it just areas for improvement and areas for development, but there's no blame to go around when you have had the type of season that they've had compared to what the expectations were initially.
Yeah, I mean, they've had so many injuries. I mean, I get so many teams have that injury, excuse, but you have your number one wideout hurt right now, Hopkins. I mean, they're saying that Watt is going to be back next week. I mean, you definitely have some warts where that they're not going to be out there on this upcoming Sunday or not Monday. But I'm going to also say not just Kingsbury. I'm going to say Steve Keim as well, because I hope you guys know that Rasul Douglas was on the Cardinals, was on the practice squad in October, and they just let him go. And the Packers end up scooping him up, and now Rasul Douglas is one of the best corners in the game right now, and the Cardinals right now are decimated at corner, and now they have to play Breon Borders. They have to play these guys that should not be on the field when they could have had Douglas, who has 5 interceptions in 11 games. So I think a lot of it also has to do with Keim as well, and also first-round pick Zaven Collins, nowhere to be found. I mean, that's another negative on Steve Keim's resume right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think with Keim, I'm also looking at the fact that how well did your team, this roster that you put together, perform against the expectations.
No, I get it.
So it's hard for me to say that about, the team overall, but it's interesting. All right, our next question is about the Bears. They fired everybody on Monday. They fired the lady in the lunchroom that put the vitamins on the trays. They fired valet parking. They fired the dude that changes the towels in the bath. They fired everybody. Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace sent packing. So we've talked about who maybe should replace Nagy. We already know Adam Schefter reported that Brian Daboll was contacted and for to get permission from the Bills to interview him for the head coaching job there. But my question is who should be the next general manager of the Chicago Bears? And I'm going to ask you first, Ryan, who do you have lined up for that?
I'm going to give a glowing endorsement to Vice President of Pro Personnel, Adrian Wilson, for the Arizona Cardinals. Yeah,
No.
I've heard a lot of good things.
Fantastic safety back in the day.
Yeah. One of the best safeties for the Cardinals, went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers, 5-time Pro Bowler. I mean, the guy did it all in Arizona. I mean, his stats speak for itself, but that's for the field. For off the field, I mean, the guy, he dug up the ranks, but didn't just go up the ranks in a couple years. He was a scout for a couple years, and now he's all of a sudden VP of pro personnel. And I'm hearing a lot of rumors out there that I think the Giants are looking at him in terms of a vacant GM position. And I don't think the Bears, as of right now, are looking at him right now. But the guy's 42 years old. And even though I did say Zaven Collins has been a little bit of a dud in the first round, you could probably put that on Keim. But the rest of the draft's concerned, I mean, the Cardinals have put out a lot of talent out there. I mean, Isaiah Simmons has been really good for them at linebacker. I mean, you're looking at Budda Baker. You're looking at so many guys that are really contributing for the Cardinals that, I got to give them credit. They've scouted really well, and there's a reason they've gone from 3-13 2 years ago to 11-win record in 2021. So I think Wilson's resume speaks for itself. I don't know if he's going to get a position this year, but I'm willing to bet next year Wilson's definitely going to be a GM, and I don't think the Bears should just dismiss Wilson.
Yeah. Also, another thing about Wilson, and one of the things I think is extremely underrated about what the Cardinals did from a player personnel or player acquisition standpoint is bringing in AJ Green. We've talked about it a couple times over the past month or so, but what he provided to that wide receiver group was huge in the face of injuries to DeAndre Hopkins and inexperience with Rondale Moore and him struggling to stay healthy. He was a constant for the team. So I think that's a big deal as well. And I'm sure Adrian Wilson gets some of the credit for that as the VP of Player Pro Personnel. So
James Conner too. Yeah.
James Conner as well. Yeah. All right, Lorenzo, who do you got?
So I'm going to go with a former Bear, but it's actually somebody who was actually in their front office a while back. And I'm also noticing that his name has officially been considered as the strong candidate for the GM position. Colts director of college scouting, Morocco Brown. Now, here's the tie-in that Brown has with the Bears. From 2001 to 2007, he had served a similar position, pro scouting. Well, that was during the time when he discovered a young man by the name of Brian Urlacher. He also discovered a young man by the name of Lance Briggs.
Yes,
he was building that roster for the Bears that eventually became Lovie Smith's team. Right now, he's with the Colts. He was able to discover a young man by the name of Jonathan Taylor. So I'm thinking he to me is my top choice for this position.
That one's interesting. That one is interesting. I can't say that I hate it. What about you, Paul?
I got to go with my boy. I've been banging this drum for so many years, and it's about time this man gets the job. Let me introduce you to Smooth Louis Riddick. It is long overdue.
Give it. Bring it.
Main man.
That's my dog.
Okay.
My boy, my man, gets a job as a GM. He has been at every level from player to scout to executive. He is incredibly intelligent. I love hearing him personally. I would hate for this to happen because I wouldn't hear him as much. I'd only hear him like twice a year at the GM conversation as opposed to daily on ESPN. But Louis Riddick is the man. It's been long overdue. I banged the drum when it was between him and Dave Gettleman with the Giants. I said, you guys, you got to go with a newer guy that's got a more modern flair, a more modern understanding of the game. Dave Gettleman, again, computer nerds, analytics, and all that. Louis Riddick has the right balance of both the player side of things, the executive side of things, the scout side of things. I think that's a perfect blend, quite frankly, and he should be the top target for the Chicago Bears.
I almost want to eliminate my target and go with Louis Riddick because Riddick is one of my favorite, GM candidates out there. Like, I'm going to tell you something about Riddick before I tell you about who I picked. Does he know football? Absolutely. Inside out, backwards and forwards, every which way you can know it. Is he a super sharp guy who totally exudes the kind of confidence that would show you that he should be able to be a solid leader of an organization and set a culture, which is very important, especially with the Bears right now? But there's something about Riddick. He has a presence. He is the type of guy who will give your organization an identity. And it goes from him down. I'm a Riddick. There will ultimately start to be Riddick guys if he gets an opportunity. I'm ready to see him get the opportunity. He is phenomenal on Monday Night Football. He's phenomenal on ESPN. Just I don't know, man. The dude's got it. He's got it. And I think it is definitely time that he gets a job. But he's not my choice. My choice is another young GM candidate, and it is Rand Carthon.
Wow.
I am very big on young executives. Call it the baseball thing in me because I watched Theo Epstein just turn things on their head in Boston and in Chicago. Seemed like this young whippersnapper that what does he know? But all of a sudden he's winning World Series in places that people have never won World Series before. And it's something about that young executive that I like. I also like the fact that Rand Carthon is the son of Maurice Carthon, a former New York Giants running back. So he's got football in his blood. He's another one that has charisma. He has a presence. He can help establish an identity, and he has the experience. He was the 49ers. He's the 49ers pro scout, the manager of the pro scouting department for the 49ers. He used to play in the NFL. Wasn't a fantastic player, but it's fine. He also ran the Rams personnel department. So he has success. And what I'm looking at is it's very tough for me to champion a guy getting a job who was running a division of a losing organization. The Niners have been perennial winners or contenders for the last 10 to 15 years. They're usually never just totally out of things. The Rams have built a very solid roster. Obviously, they won. They did what they did. This season and had a fantastic year. I want winners. I'm like Mike Singletary. I want
winners. I was getting Mike Singletary in the head.
That's what I want. I want winners. So that's what I'm looking for, and that's who I would go with is Rand Carthon. All right, let's talk about one of pretty much the biggest story, especially of the evening or the late games on Week 18 in the NFL was the Chargers Raiders with one of the most exciting, mind-boggling, high-stakes finishes I can remember seeing in NFL history. It was crazy. Coming down the stretch, the Raiders and Chargers, if they tie, they both get in. If somebody loses, the loser doesn't get in and the Steelers get in. Raiders are, driving down the field on about the 40-yard line, 39-yard line, and they're in field goal range for a long field goal, but they could also just sit on the ball and make the playoffs. Clearly, they're trying to win. They're not in a formation that that says they're going to clock it or anything like that. They're not calling on a timeout, even though they had a timeout. They're going to run the ball more than likely to try to get better field position to get a little bit better of a field goal. But the Chargers are in the game. They're in the playoffs if they simply let the clock run out or if the clock runs out on the Raiders. Brandon Staley calls a timeout, which then allows the Raiders to run a traditional run up the gut play with Josh Jacobs. He gets the first down, puts them in extremely makeable field goal range. They actually then call their timeout with 3 seconds left, kick a field goal, and the Chargers lose and go home, and the Steelers make the playoffs. So what struck me was there's a clip of Justin Herbert on the sidelines, and he turns to a teammate and he says, "I never wanted a tie so bad in my life." And so I'm like, yes, he's got the right idea. But what in the blue devil hell is Brandon Staley thinking about? And so I've heard this whole thing, this argument of, well, he really didn't cost them anything by causing the timeout. And I'm not putting all of this on Brandon Staley, right? Because there's a chance the Raiders get the first down anyway. The Chargers haven't been able to stop the run all year anyway. There's a chance it happens. There's a chance that, Raiders super clutch kicker. I mean, the guy has been just a monster all year. There's a chance he just makes a 56-yarder anyway that beats you. They call their own timeout. But my thought of it was, how do you not see that you hurt your chances by calling that timeout? How do you not see that? So in my opinion, I just don't see any way at all where that was a smart thing to do. I don't know. Do you guys see that differently? What do you say, Paul?
You won't, Brian. Don't worry. I will. I put it all on Brandon Staley. To me, and I get it, the Raiders weren't in kneeling formation, but you couldn't have possibly. They would have been destroyed the next day if they took a knee to just let the clock expire. Hey, we both made it. They would have been eviscerated by the media. So while they weren't kneeling it, they were pretty lackadaisical coming up to the line. Oh, yeah, roll. And the Chargers calling a timeout there, and then the Raiders getting the first down. They said, you know what? YOLO, we'll kick the field goal. If he doesn't call that timeout, I truly believe the Raiders just kind of run the ball, give somewhat of a lackadaisical effort. Clock's rolling. They're like, wow, if we do nothing, we're automatically in the playoffs. If we attempt a field goal, it gets blocked, returned to the house, we lose, and we're out. I think we're just going to run it, let the clock roll out. I think that's what would have happened. I think that was firmly in the Raiders' mind. And then when they called the timeout and got the nice run, they said, screw it, we'll go for it. It is unbelievable. Brandon Staley, I'm analytics guy. Look at this and this. And all the stupid stuff in the game. No, he doesn't deserve a pass. Brandon Staley's an idiot. He's the reason that we were all robbed of not seeing Justin Herbert in the playoffs. It's Brandon Staley's fault. He needs to eat it. And I don't care what he says. Oh, the timeout didn't change the thing. It 100%. It changed the entire dynamic, or they would both be in the playoffs with a tie, and the Steelers would be whining in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I it's very hard for me to argue with that too much. I just don't understand. I don't understand how he rationalized that. I mean, I'm like literally, I don't understand. I don't understand how. I mean, the Raiders ran a run play, just over a minute left in the overtime period, got it to 3rd and 4, and the clock's just running. Chargers, Raiders, they're just looking at it, and it gets all the way down. Raiders, like you said, taking their sweet time, getting to the line of scrimmage. They are not in any kind of hurry. This ball is on the 39-yard line, and Staley lets it run down to 38 seconds, and he calls it. My thought is, if you're gonna call this timeout, why not call it earlier? Why are you waiting for 38 seconds to call it?
Let me get my take here. Yeah, I totally agree with you when it comes to I guess they didn't see the right defense, in 5 seconds. So I think that's what I'm going to say. Like, that's totally on Staley and the defense. They didn't know what they were doing up until like 5 seconds left. I think you saw the linebackers looking back and forth saying, what are we doing here? I think they didn't even have 2 guys on the field too. I think there was a wide receiver completely open on the right side. So I think that's why Staley called the timeout. And I'm going to go off the deep end right here. I think you two are off base with this whole Staley thing. I think you guys aren't really getting the whole picture, because I'll be honest with you, I think your takes I probably had at the time of that at that series. I think, look, you call a timeout and they didn't have the right people. I think they had 9 guys on the field. Count the players on the field when that happened. They had 9 players.
How did it work with 11?
Either way, that's the reason why you should be so pissed. Not at the timeout, at the fact that they couldn't defend the run. I think they gave up 170 yards in the game. If you want to get pissed at the personnel, get pissed at the players because they couldn't stop them on 3rd and 4, and then the next play. But if you're gonna just sit here and cry about the timeout, it had nothing to do with the timeout. They were gonna run a play anyway. So I don't know what you guys are talking about.
It's still on Staley because of the management aspect of it. The
Exactly.
Look, you're talking about the timeout. Fine. You have to call timeout there because they didn't get it right. If you want to criticize Staley and the coaching on 9 guys on the field and they didn't know what they were doing, fine. But you guys aren't talking about that. You're talking about just calling a timeout and that they were going to kneel. They were not going to kneel. If they kneeled, they were not going to kneel one, and they weren't going to lay down because they were going to play the Chiefs if they tied.
I never said they were going to kneel. I never said they were going to kneel. What I said is I don't think it's as bad or as simple as, oh, you called a timeout, they were going to kneel. What are you doing? No, I don't think it was as simple as that. What I think is that you did not give yourself a better chance to make the playoffs by calling that timeout.
I don't agree.
Because there's 38 seconds left in the game, and the Raiders were not about to call timeout. The Raiders were going to run a play, and the Raiders were going to run a run play. So the Chargers had 10 guys on the field. The Chargers had 10 guys on the field that I could see, right? So even if you run the run play, right, and he's either got to bust it for a first down like he did anyway. He's got to bust it for even a bigger play than that. Carr was not going to put that ball in the air, even with fewer people.
We don't know that.
I'm looking at the guy. There was nobody wide open.
You don't know that. He could have very well hiked the ball, thrown it to the guy on the right, and he has a wide open touchdown.
The guy wasn't all wide open. The 25's right in front of him.
And there's a picture where the wide receiver on the right side is wide open.
Right now, I'm looking at the whole entire field right now. 26 is right in front of their upstart wide receiver, whose name escapes me right now, number 7.
Zay Jones. Zay Jones.
He's right in front of Zay Jones. And now, true enough, the Chargers did only have 10 guys on the field. They only had 10 guys on the field.
Yeah.
But my whole point is, do I think it's as preposterous as some people are saying? No. But I do think that he did not increase his chances of winning by calling the timeout. To me, he increased his chances of losing.
I don't think so. I think it's pretty much the same.
Brandon Staley's going to be a good head coach. I do believe that. However, though, he's taken some risky gambles. I mean, there was that Ravens game, and then there was another game where he ended up going for like 2-point conversion when he couldn't settle for the tie. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, it's like I feel like that he needs to trust more his heart than the math. He needs to trust more of that along those lines. Now, again, he was educated in this game. He was educated against a Raiders team that was also in this situation. That's not saying that Brandon Staley is going to be a terrible head coach. I think that he has a lot of potential, but this game was an educational lesson.
All right, last question. Which Patriots player has to play better to beat the Bills in the wild card game? All right, I'm going to start. For me, it's really simple. It's Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones has been exposed a bit in the last 4 weeks of the season. I think he's shown a lot of heart. I think he's shown a lot of resilience, just being able to fight back after some slow starts, which have been plaguing the Patriots all year long for the most part. So I don't have any question about his toughness. And I think ultimately some of these earlier mistakes he makes, he won't make. But for right now, if the Patriots are going to beat Buffalo in this third game in a rubber match of their season series, he's going to have to make Buffalo respect him. Part of that is going to be about taking care of the ball. That's going to be first and foremost. But he's going to have to make some plays with his arm, and they can't be check downs. They can't be screen passes that Brandon Bolden or Ramondre Stevenson turn into big plays. They can't even be slant routes that Kendrick Bourne catches and takes 75 yards. They can't even be any of that. He has to make some wild throws that gets Buffalo to respect him, because so far the running game has protected him all year long. In this game, Buffalo is going to dare Mac Jones to beat them, and he's going to have to do it. So to me, he's the one who has to step up. What about you, Paul?
You know what, Brian? Rarely do we agree on this show, but let's make it happen for old time's sake, huh? 5 picks in the last 4 games here for old Mac. Golden Boy's been exposed. Not as great as we all thought he was. Interesting. Old Mac Jones. Here's the thing, okay, is that Mac Jones is like a car, okay? And the car looks real nice on the outside. Like, wow, this must be a new model. This must be fantastic. It's one of those used car dealerships you got it from. And then when they sell you the car, they give you the keys. You're like, perfect. Let me look under the hood. Wait a second. There's not an engine here. And the guy's halfway down the road running saying, thanks. That's what Mac Jones is. He lacks that engine. He lacks that chutzpah. And this is prove-it time in the playoff game. It's do or die. Can you throw 3 passes, try to win a game? Or, Mac, maybe you can throw a couple more softballs out there and try to do something, okay? Because it's on Mac Jones. Because if Mac Jones folds like a used lawn chair, falls over like a sack of potatoes, everyone's going to be looking at Mac Jones if the Patriots are one and done. So it's not the running game. It's not the defense. It's Mac Jones. Exactly what you said, Brian. He needs to make game-winning plays because that's what Buffalo is going to do. They're going to load up the box. They're going to put 12 guys in the box, say, beat us over the top, Mac. And you know what? If we look at recent history, he's not going to be able to do it. He's thrown, again, 5 interceptions the last 4 games. He's completely imploded. He's lost all sense of himself. And let's see if he has got some chutzpah. I mean, the rookie's going to get put up against it. It's put up or shut up in his first playoff game. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's fallen apart. I think that he has definitely, I think you said, shown some cracks, which is, I would say that's accurate. But, I mean, if you look at, his last couple games, 4 touchdown passes, 1 pick. He did have the fumble that he lost against the Jaguars, which not enough people are talking about. And a lot of it is the timing of what happens. It's kind of snowballing on him early. But he did lead 2 75-yard touchdown drives in the fourth quarter to draw them within 3. The Patriots had an opportunity to stop the Dolphins and get the ball back to Mac Jones and the Patriots offense with, I believe it was 2 timeouts just after the 2-minute warning. But they could not corral Tagovailoa on that scramble. Third and 8 scramble ended up getting the first down. And that was really the game there. It was really a horrible play altogether because that's also the play that Christian Barmore got injured. Thankfully, it came back where he doesn't have a serious injury, but we don't know. Still may be out for the playoff game against Buffalo. So it's just all around bad play. But I don't think he's been horrible, but I definitely, like I said, and we agree, he is the one that has to step up. What about you, Ryan?
I will just say this. I love the touchdown pass to Xavier Howard. I mean, he hit him in stride. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was really dirty.
That was majestic.
That was just very dirty what you just did.
Go ahead, Ryan.
What about you, Ryan?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm going to call out Bill Belichick for this one because, look, like, you just lost to a guy that's lost his job. I mean, on his day off. I mean, Brian Flores, you just lost your job on your day off. And, you're 10-7 after all that jazz, all that, I remember we were talking about Coach of the Year. I think he's the Kingsbury of the AFC when it comes to this year. You're just underachieving this second half. And look, I get it. You have a rookie quarterback. So there are certain limitations with the offense. You don't have the weapons. And Mac Jones, I think had like a penalty. I think he had a false start penalty as well. Did that happen?
Have a false start penalty.
Oh my God. So
rookie mistake.
Yeah, it's a rookie mistake. So look, I don't think they're going to beat the Bills. I'd be shocked, and I got to tell you, I'm putting it all on Belichick here. I mean, he's got to put out some magic tricks for this one because look, I don't see how they come away with a win because look, when they're down, I think they're out when it comes to football games. I don't see whenever they have a lead, you feel like they can maintain that lead because they have Belichick, they have the history of keeping leads, but when they're down, I feel like they're out. And when you're down against the Miami Dolphins and you don't come back, man, I don't have a lot of confidence heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, I actually, you have to agree with that based off of what we've seen. They have 1 fourth quarter comeback this year, and they've been down sometime. I mean, they lost 7 games, so obviously there's been some opportunities for some comebacks, and they have had some comebacks. They just haven't finished them. They came back against Dallas, came back against Tampa Bay, came back against Indianapolis, came back in this game, but they haven't been able to finish because of how bad the starts have been. So, I mean, I still think Mac Jones, but I understand what you're saying about Bill Belichick. But I think he's in a similar situation to Cliff Kingsbury. Yeah. I'm not sure how many people suspected that they would be in the running to win the AFC East into the last weekend of the season. So I already think he's done a bang-up job. He's already won the year. by getting them back to the playoffs, a 1-year rebuild essentially. The arrows pointing up for the Patriots with so many good young players. So I don't know, but I don't think it's crazy. What about you, Lorenzo?
I'm going to stay with the coaching staff, but I'm going to go with the offensive coordinator, Josh McDaniels. I think, honestly, you hear McDaniels' name all the time about, is he going to be a head coach again? What place could be like it for him? I feel like this is the game because of the fact that you have a rookie quarterback. You have an opportunity to get creative in that cold weather in front of Buffalo. You could get creative with Mac Jones, maybe like try to counter like when they bring in 9, 10, or however many in the box. I feel like this could possibly be the career coaching defining game, and maybe the game that catapults Josh McDaniels back into the conversation of being a head coach again.
You know what? I actually don't hate that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, like you said, his name has been coming up, and you know how people talk about a Heisman moment. I think Josh needs like a elevation moment. So we've looked at what he's done with Mac Jones this year, and it's been a pretty good showing. And Mac Jones has, got a rookie quarterback. He got him to this point, but now the overall unveiling of everything you've developed could be this game. Mac Jones comes out, throws for 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and they upset the Bills on the road. Oh, that's going to be considered a Josh McDaniels masterclass. And it would be the perfect push-off, even if they lose the next playoff game. But it would be the perfect push-off for him to go back into a head coaching side. So I like that. I really do. I like that quite a bit. So that's all that we have for you guys today. I truly appreciate your time and watching. So please, if you have not yet subscribed, please do so. And also don't forget to like the video. As always, God bless.